if I don't get what I want, I'm gonna riot. And if that doesn't work, me and my friend Mark, we're gonna stop watching.
Hey friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to the channel. So, word of warning, this is going to be one of those videos where I just sort of ramble for a little bit and ask you guys a question, which then you can fill our comments here at WrestleJuice. I don't know why I said R, that's just me here at WrestleJuice. And the question is this: how should the WWE go about attracting new fans to their product? Do you think they need to? This, of course, is coming after Monday's Night Raw, where their ratings, their overall viewership, got a huge boost from the presence of fans and Goldberg, and being the day after Money in the Bank. And this is only a couple weeks after they achieved their lowest rating in Monday Night history, which was like less than 1.5 million viewers. The episode of Raw from this past week got about 1.9, almost 2 million viewers. And they're looking to build their momentum going into SummerSlam. I asked this question because I saw an interesting interview with one Paul Levesque, who you might know better as the Game Triple H. See, he's this picture up here with a goofy smile. I use the Facetune app that I do the other video with. That was pretty funny. So he did this interview with Dan Gelston of the Associated Press, where Triple H is talking about returning to live crowds. He talks about Roman Reigns and finding his character. And he said this about specifically the company. He said WWE is going to work really hard at trying to attract new fans. The company would take a hard look, at how it can attract more fans to the product each week. The article goes on to say WWE can only hope the combination of live crowds and the return of box office attractions such as Becky Lynch, Goldberg, and John Cena can ignite interest heading into SummerSlam. He said this: "It never is one thing." Sorry, I'm not going to do this with a Triple H voice. He says, "It never is one thing. We see this as a moment in time to shift everything. I think you'll see it in just the layout of everything, the set designs, the way it's presented. There's a greater emphasis on utilizing the spaces that we have and the TV aspect of it while still engaging the fans. A lot of that comes from the time we had to experiment inside the Thunderdome." He says the article says the first start is putting fans holding their homemade signs, which you don't really see a whole lot of anymore, and wearing their catchphrase t-shirts back in the seats. Kind of interesting that he would focus not on the things that I personally feel are sort of most necessary in wrestling. I mean, he talks about here the relationship between the performer and the fans, and I think that's a very important one. I think that trying to react to a bunch of screens of people doing this and this in the Thunderdome is just a completely whack way of doing business. And so I do think that fans are one element of being able to attract even more people because your product looks more exciting. But you can't help but remember in that one video I did a couple weeks ago that the ratings just continually drop. And here's the thing, I totally understand. This is one of the points I made, that more and more people are plugging out of watching TV, and you can ingest wrestling in many different ways. There are all sorts of illegal Twitch streams for one thing, or just internet streams in general. WWE posts like a vast number of their content in the form of YouTube clips. Who knows how much of it is watched on Hulu next day or the network next month. I'm sure that there is probably a lot more people watching WWE, the product, than the ratings would show. However, the fact that WWE's TV ratings have actually been declining faster than comparable TV ratings with other programs, and at the same time, a rival wrestling promotion, one you might have heard of called All Elite Wrestling, their ratings have been going up this past couple weeks. This last week's episode of Dynamite I thought was a really, really good episode, but there was nothing overly special about it. They didn't try to pop a rating by doing anything overly special. The highest segment, according to Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, the highest segment in that episode of Dynamite was actually Kenny Omega confronting, or Hangman Page confronting Kenny Omega. It's a long building, brewing storyline that people are really interested in. It wasn't, the former WWE personality Chris Jericho in action against former WWE personality Shawn Spears. It wasn't former WWE personality Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose in a brutal match against Lance Archer, although that did really well, I think, in the major demo 18-49 thing. AEW does seem to be attracting more and more fans. And obviously, one of the biggest stories is going to be, at some point, with Raw's ratings continually doing this and AEW's continually doing this, is there a ceiling for AEW and is there a floor for WWE? An interesting question to pose, given the history of the ratings in the WWE. So I went back and I looked at every year of pro wrestling in the WWE for the past 10 years, actually 12 years, to see what have they been doing to attract new fans over all these years. Besides running their regular storylines, which can be good and they can be bad, but I thought it'd be interesting to see what they did. So if you guys remember, 2009, 2010, we had the guest host era. That's when they brought in fact, I have a list of the guest hosts here. The guest host history starts out June 29th, 2009. Batista. I'm going to take out the wrestling names here. So we had names like Seth Green, ZZ Top, Shaquille O'Neal, Jeremy Piven, Freddie Prinze Jr., Floyd Mayweather Jr., Bob Barker was a guest host at one point, Cedric the Entertainer, Al Sharpton, Ben Roethlisberger, Nancy O'Dell, and Maria Menounos. Oh, the Entertainment Tonight people. Snoop Dogg, Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne, I don't know who this is. Ricky Hatton. Oh, boxer. Okay. Mark Cuban, Vern Troyer. He was a host. Mike Tyson. Dule Hill from Psych. Nice. Jerry Springer was a guest host. Chris Angel was a host at one point. Let's see here. David Hasselhoff was a guest host at one point. MacGruber was a guest host at one point. Flavor Flav and Wayne Brady. Flavor Flav actually was, I believe, May 10th, 2010. Was he the final guest host they had? Where was that guy's name? I forget. Anyways, so yeah, Flavor Flav seemed to close out the guest host era. Then we get into guest stars like Hugh Jackman, Toby Keith, Pee Wee Herman, Johnny Knoxville, Rob Zombie, the guys from Ashton Kutcher. The guys from the A-Team. John Lovitz was a guest star at one point. And that continued on till, when did that continue? That just kept on going. They brought in guests for like a long time. I'm in like 2013 and then 2014 they were doing it. Oh my gosh. So up until like 2015 or so, they were doing it on a semi-regular basis. They only did it a handful of times in 2015. So at that point, they were done with that stuff. But that's been one way that Vince McMahon has always wanted to try to reel in more people, is by bringing in guest stars to just sort of show their face, and they bring their audience over and then people check it out. And it's like, oh, do they stick around? No, probably not. WrestleMania season, they tried to pop fans any number of ways. In 2011, 2012, and 2013, of course, they were trying to use The Rock, first being a guest host at WrestleMania, and then he had the two matches with John Cena. They had The Rock become WWE champion during that spell. After that, in 2014, we had The Ultimate Warrior come back at WrestleMania. We had a heavy emphasis at that point of bringing Brock Lesnar back in. They spent a lot of money and time on that. 2015, they brought Sting to the WWE, which is a pretty big deal and very inside wrestling. It's not like they were trying to bring in some sort of guest host for that to pop ratings. They brought in Sting and they made a big deal about that. A lot more Brock Lesnar. They were trying the whole Roman Reigns thing. In 2015, also Ronda Rousey made her WrestleMania appearance. 2016, I couldn't really find much that they did in 2016 in terms of big stunt stuff. 2017 saw the return of Bill Goldberg. At the tail end of 2016, I guess, is when Goldberg showed up, because that was a Survivor Series. And then 2017 was the WrestleMania match with Goldberg. They made Jinder WWE champion in May of that year. 2018 is when Ronda Rousey made her WWE in-ring debut in that tag match with Kurt Angle versus Triple H and Stephanie, and she had her run from then on. And then in 2019, they tried to pop stuff with Cain Velasquez, which I think resulted in one match, maybe two. I think it was just one, and then his knees were tore up, so that was it. So it's kind of interesting. Every year they try something. They try to do something, and it feels like at this point WWE is just going to try to do more of that. So I don't know. Something tells me that, I think a lot of people obviously are very aware of WWE. It's just they've elected to tune out because the product really hasn't been all that great, especially over the past year or so. Empty arena is just really, really tough. Will they stick around now that fans are back and there's some enthusiasm and they're doing some things that seem to be right over the past couple of weeks? If they've got all this good shit planned, are they going to be able to recapture the enthusiasm? Let me know in the comments below. I want to see WWE do really well because it's really good for my business. And I want to see AEW do very, very well because it's good for my business. And it just makes the product better when you have two companies trying to creatively outdo each other. We've seen that before, and it's pretty cool. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Really, I just did this video so that I could put that Triple H thumbnail in there. Come on, look at that. That's hilarious. Look at that face. Look at that big old smile of his. That's not real right there. That dude does not smile like that anymore. Not after what Vince did to NXT. Oh boy, they ran that into the ground, huh? Anyways, watch one of these other videos, why don't you? Yeah.